Cool. I don't do this a whole lot, so I'm trying to figure out if it's working or not, or how to do it best. So it's a learning experience for me too.
Yeah, well, it's a learning experience for all of us to be in this weird sort of like we're all in some sort of space station reality.
True.
Have to go out of the air. But I wanted to show you that I did receive the drawing.
Hey, nice.
In my hands. It's very nice in reality. It was really fun to watch you creating this, especially with the odd request about the future.
I'm so happy that it got there in one piece.
Yeah, it's one piece, and there was actually two pieces because you also wrote a nice note here, which is definitely a hallmark of your work, is to have already like created the stuff to fit in the envelope, and the envelope was superbly decorated.
You know, I try to keep it superb for you all the time, Trey.
Appreciate it. You know, we don't get mail anymore. You know, we just get bills. So it's always a delight to receive something from you, because you put the effort in. Where the effort is not put.
That's what I'm here for, buddy. Yeah, it's been cool. It's been cool to get back into that swing, the tangible swing. I mean, I never got off it, but it did like greatly diminish in my life. And it just became something that I got heavily back into the last couple of months, just like kind of being stuck at home and whatnot. And then beginning to do that drawcast thing on Sunday nights.
Yeah. Which I still would like to attend again, because that was really just a delight to watch you creating something. You know, it's kind of like watching Bob Ross. You know, you're just like whipping it out, and I'm just completely blown away that you have that that facility to do it live. Because I would be like, I'll get back to you in a month or something. You know.
Right. I do it that way too, for sure. You know, I guess. Yeah. I like the challenge. I like being put on the spot. I mean, I also don't like it, but then if I kind of force myself to do it, it feels good, you know, kind of gets my molecules bouncing.
So yeah, you don't shy away from challenges, really. I noticed that. Right.
From challenges?
Well, from the challenge, like, I mean, what I was really impressed by when I met you, and I don't know, it was like in the 90s, right?
1996.
96.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I know. At that time, I was 20, and I remember you were 27, and I was like, "Wow, that guy's old."
Oh man, 27 again. That would be.
Yeah,
awesome.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think I derailed your train. You were on your way somewhere.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I was impressed that as a 20-year-old you had got your station wagon all full of your own, you know, production, like many boxes of your CD, and you just were like shopping it around the nation, you know. And that was a display of like creative effort that I was not familiar with, because, you know, living on the West Coast, it's like, yeah, I want to do this thing, and then most of the time doesn't happen, you know. So I was stoked to meet a young fella who was willing to strike out on his own like that.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool to hear that. It's cool to think about that. I mean, for me, that tour was my first attempt at doing, you know, like some sort of national performing tour as a performing songwriter. Yeah. And I definitely had no idea what I was doing. I think I was out there on the road for like a month and a half on that trip. And right. Yeah, there was probably a total of 6 or 7 shows. There was like a show I'm from Wisconsin, so I had left Madison, and right. The first show was like in Salt Lake City, which is, you know, not very nearby.
Right.
And then there was like a show in San Francisco and one in LA. and then there was shows booked after that. You know, they were all like a week apart or like a few days. It wasn't really like a tour like we would think of it. But yeah, I was en route. The only reason I ended up in Santa Cruz where you were was actually because I was en route from LA to a show in Tucson, I think. And then the next show after that was in New Orleans. But on my way out of LA at like whatever time that was, like middle of the night, my car broke down. And that was like the last of my money was used up on fixing it after, you know, it was, again, like 25 whatever years ago.
Right.
No cell phone, like just on the side of the interstate in a random neighborhood in LA, like kind of just pulled over, like climbed over the noise wall, you know, and just like found a payphone and looked up a tow truck in the, you know, in the phone book. And anyway, long story short, yeah, I was just like, well, I don't have any money to continue the tour. Somebody told me that Santa Cruz was an interesting town. So I was like, I'm just going to retreat a little bit and go back the way I came. Let me just go sit on the beach.
Wow. So it was really, the chances of us meeting each other were like infinitesimal then. They were like, it all depended on that breakdown, right?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And, you know, you reminded me when you're telling me this story, because I remember I heard you told me something about that, but now that you've elaborated, very similar story. You know, that Depression era photo of the woman with the kids, and she's like, it's a very famous photo by Dorothea Lange. It's like My Mother, I think it's called.
Okay. It's not ringing a bell, but I'll look it up.
Yeah, look it up afterwards. It's very famous. It's probably one of the most famous Depression era photographs, black and white photograph. And same story, like that woman broke down in Watsonville in her car, and she was just waiting for the tow truck or something, and Dorothea Lange came up and like took her picture. And so she ended up living in Santa Cruz for the rest of her life, that woman, you know.
Okay, that photograph was in Watsonville.
That was, yeah, it was in like Watsonville or somewhere around there, between Watsonville and Santa Cruz. Yeah. And what's interesting about that also is that her kids were very upset because that became the most famous picture of the Depression era. And it was like, it didn't depict that woman as actually how she was. She was actually a very vibrant, excited, you know, loved dancing and all that. But there was just like this one split second where she just looked super depressed, and that became her.
The thing that lived on. Yeah. I mean, I think about that kind of thing a lot because, you know, especially these days, even before the pandemic, just like the whole world has become so much about like just a little taste, a little image, which is broadcast. And people think that's what the thing is then, you know, people think like, oh, that's what that person looks like, or that's what that musician sounds like. And yeah, I think about that a lot. Or just the whole way that like social media is sort of like this like super limited linear like distillation of a person's like existence, you know, but people really rely on that now. They think, oh, that's who the person is, you know, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah, that's why we have to just take everything with a grain of salt, I suppose, you know, like every circumstance of life is a discrete moment, you know. So,
yeah, big time.
I don't know. I try to shoot for the middle as best I can, like
likewise,
and give everybody a break, you know, especially like right now, all this pandemic and social upheaval is happening, and you know, more polarity and racial tension and all that. It feels like you just got to give people a break and try to understand circumstances, you know, and like give some wiggle room to that. Otherwise it just becomes very, I don't know, terrifying. It would be one word that comes to mind.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it with that word, polarization. It does feel like we're really at that point. I mean, it's so good in so many ways, though, right? Because just like as a social tipping point,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to hear people talk about, very casually things that were kind of unthinkable a month or two ago, like talking about
Right.
defunding the police and doing away with policing systems entirely, which
Yeah.
and as well as prison industrial and all this. And
Oh yeah.
I'm quite on board with all that. I think it's a super exciting time. And yeah, just as far as like, you and I are white guys, clearly. And
I think so. Last time I checked.
yeah, yeah. And so I just looking back, just being of our generation, like
Yeah.
I don't know how it was for you, but growing up for me, like the idea that we were taught in school was sort of like racism is bad, but it's this very vague thing that just basically means like this kind of person doesn't like that kind of person, and there's not really any power imbalance. We don't talk about any of that. It's just like this thing like people should just love each other and be nice.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really get into the whole actual history of things and why there's such gross injustices and imbalances. And I
Yeah.
think, we just sort of like as a culture, we just kind of hobbled along with that very, very incomplete acknowledgement of racism for like a long time.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And it's just beautiful, I think, at this point, just to see, people are finally just fed up enough with that as a society that we're just like, fuck that. Like,
Yeah.
if something has to really change, we have to like really like uproot what we've been working with and build something
Yeah.
new.
Yeah. It's true. And I think raising consciousness doesn't happen once, it happens ongoing, So like, I mean, obviously the thing that sparked all this was not an isolated incident so much, but it did raise our consciousness about something that's been going on for, centuries. And we just got to be reminded, unfortunately, in such an incendiary way, but yeah, I mean, I was born, I think the same year that Martin Luther King was killed.
Mm.
So that thing was already in motion when I was, a baby. And then it sort of goes like this, it's like, obviously, we need to revisit the issue often, but, my experience with it has been like, I don't know, we're all people. So what, but we gotta have the bird's eye view and the in focus view and the out of focus view and the in focus view, and that's my view on it.
Totally. Yeah, I hear that for sure. And right, and I can identify with what you're saying. Um, yeah, because people in our bodies like don't haven't had reasons to like really address this matter that much because we aren't really affected by it, even though we're of the demographic of people that has historically perpetuated all this and been
Right.
advantaged by it.
Right.
And so yeah, I think since quite a few years now, and I think just increasingly as we go forward, it's going to be like there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable moments, uncomfortable conversations for white folks.
Yeah.
And I think that's good, because I think a lot of the rest of the folks around have been living many, habitually uncomfortable existences. So I think it's good that we get a turn and we kind of try to help figure out like how to deal with all this. Because yeah, I think the onus is on us. I think that's been widely acknowledged.
Definitely. Well, it's interesting. Like the other day, I went out to a restaurant for the first time in like ever. It feels like it's been a year since I've been to a restaurant. But they're starting to slowly open the restaurants in New Mexico anyway. It was super windy out here for like hours and hours. We're like in this total wind plateau, and it was just like, all right, I give up. Let's go to sushi, and so we went to town and tried some sushi, and it was like nobody in the restaurant. There's a few people inside. We prefer to sit outside, so we could take our mask off and actually eat. And,
Yeah, and to play it safer out there too.
yeah, and Taos is pretty white, I would say. Well, I would say it's about a third white and about a third red and about a third brown. But the restaurant, there's a couple of African American guys sitting outside, and they're talking. And we actually, said, "Hey, what's going on? Super windy." Yeah, we're kind of connected. And then they were chatting about. Two guys were chatting about obviously some musical thing. They were talking about sound tech and speakers and audience. And I was like, okay, I want to tune in. I started eavesdrop a little bit, and they ended up leaving. Probably 10 minutes after we got there, and waved him goodbye. But I had this moment of regret. Was like, these guys were obviously talking about a show they were doing, and I didn't say, "Hey, tell me about what you're doing." Like, that sounded really cool, but I still have this bit of distance that I feel is not necessarily racist. It's more being shy. But I thought, this is the moment where I need to break that shyness and reach out and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing? I heard you talking. It sounded awesome."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still like in that space of like, it's not so much racist as just not being willing to cross that gap and say, reach out, I guess, when the opportunity presents itself.
Right. Well, I think that could be a really nuanced thing to walk forward with, yeah, a lot of layers there. I mean, I think that I'm a big advocate of like crossing those divides, when it's possible and when it feels right and when it feels like I'm invited and welcome and all that. Because yeah, for sure, along racial lines and all sorts of other everyday lines, like we do have a lot of these divides. I mean, I'm sure everywhere in the world is like that. We have our own unique systems of division in the U.S.
Definitely.
But it is true. I mean, I reflect on that a lot recently. How kind of like white America and Black America are kind of like two parallel cultures with like parallel histories that are like super tied to one another, but are also super different and like living different realities, living in a different country really from each other.
Definitely.
And then obviously there's also a lot of gray area if we're talking black and white. Like in black and white, there's a big gray area as well because there's folks who are mixed race and folks who traverse the two. But yeah, I think that's the thing. I think just folks who look like us we're just less used to, I guess, having racism be a common topic or experience in our lives, or not even racism, yeah, racism as well, but also just race, period, because we are sort of like presented as the default type of person, like in media and stories of all sorts.
Defaults type of person.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you turn on your television and you're just going to see a lot of white people, like less so today than when we were kids. Right. But it's like people who are non-white are kind of othered in that way, like, oh, you are this, you are that. But people like us traditionally haven't been like, we are this. We're not going to say we're white, in a lot of cases, because we're just thinking, oh, we're just the normal thing. We're the default, even if it's not like conscious.
For those guys who are marching and being all disgruntled in the the rallies and saying white guys are being marginalized and all that, and it's like,
that's something else.
Come on. Like, that's something.
Yeah. No, they are acknowledging their race, but I mean, not in a very constructive way.
Well, it's kind of like, it's identity politics, which I don't particularly think is a good thing. I think it further serves to keep the boxes intact, and I feel like racial integration is an interesting thing because it doesn't just mean it doesn't mean the same thing to all people. So I just kind of feel like, you know, if I were king, I would just say, well, let's just check it out. Like, you can be whoever you want, but, you know, if you want to just make divisions based on race, there's technically no difference between race in a biological sense. But, you know, racial integration means like we absorb the cultures, we appreciate the diversity of the cultures, we support the diversity of cultures. I don't know. I guess I'm getting a little soapboxy right now, which wasn't my intention, you know, but
Okay.
but it's the topic that's on the table lately.
It's like just all over the table, and and then, you know,
Or,
I mean, I think in theory I'm totally with you. Like, no, boxes don't serve anybody any good in theory, but the problem is that the boxes very much exist and have like very real implications. So if you're this type of person or that type of person, you're going to have like, you know, a very, you know, a lot of facility moving through your life, or a lot of difficulty and challenges based on just how you look and how the world perceives you.
yeah.
So I think it's just a matter, we do have to deal with the boxes, and you know, before we come to a point where we can think about doing away with them, I think we first have to correct those imbalances and just make sure everybody's able to live in a dignified and secure and, you know, fair way.
It'd be cool if everybody had like one of those. You remember TV sets? Remember back when people had TV sets?
I remember that. Yeah.
The early color sets had like a color knob and then a hue.
You could
hue, and you could like tweak those all the way.
Turn it to black and white.
Just turn everybody like blue green, sort of. You know.
Yeah.
We all came with knobs like that. We just like change them every day and tell what you're moving.
Yeah, that was great. I like those hands-on, somewhat arcane technologies.
Yeah.
Big fan of those. Interesting to mention that while speaking to you through this one, which is very modern, of course. But
yeah, this is not going away.
But I was listening to a cassette this morning. That was nice.
Tell me about your music. What's going on with your creative life in that way?
Well, a lot. Like, it's just different. It's just different things happening at different depths. You know, like some are way down below. You know, others are like closer to the surface. Wow. So I guess for me, the mode I've kind of gotten into over the last bunch of years, not really on purpose, but for whatever combination of reasons, is I seem to be one of those artists who is working on projects over like a very long term, and I'll work on something for a while and get kind of either distracted or kind of dissatisfied, or just kind of hitting some kind of impasse with it and just put it back on the shelf and work on other stuff, or just not be working on something in particular for a little while and just kind of like clear myself. And I mean, like, you know, going back again to earlier in our friendship, way back in the old days, I look back on that period, because, you know, that was like near the beginning of like my first decade, you know, basically from the time I was finishing high school until I was in my late 20s. I was just like hitting it super hard with just like, I am Ivan Klipstein, and I'm playing these shows and I'm making these CDs, and there's no internet yet. I'm just like mailing out postcards and calling people on the phone and booking these crazy tours and mailing out packages at the post office every day and spending 8 hours at Kinko's on the regular. And that was just it. That was the whole thing. And I was just like totally committed. And then I don't know, a lot of different things happened, and my world kind of, you know, on one hand became a lot broader, and And then on the other hand, I went through some difficult experiences with like relationships and deaths and all this, and kind of, you know, I just kind of got, I guess, around my Saturn return, as people who are hip on astrology call it.
I know what I had one.
Yeah, I had sort of ended up feeling like mine has been like a 20-year or like 15-year Saturn return. You know, like just kind of like I got into a space where I was just really a lot less sure about like what I was doing, and at the same time kind of dissatisfied with like some of the results of what I had been doing. And just wanting to like grow more like as an artist. And this might be a very long answer to the question, which was not exactly this, but just to kind of bring you up to date.
That time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess the basic idea is I just got a lot less ambitious publicly and a lot more ambitious kind of just like within myself and just privately, I guess you'd say. Like, and the downside of that was I sort of lost that momentum of just like, this is me and this is what I'm doing and this is who I am. And it's just, it was like a rhythm. And the upside has been like, I love a lot of the work that I've done the last, you know, decade or two. I feel super good about it. So it's just this weird irony where like, you know, I feel a lot more like, I don't know, I feel like I'm more in my prime, like as a human and as an artist now. But at the same time, I'm like promoting it less, you know, by a long shot than I was like in that earliest phase of like fiery ambition. And I'm kind of coming to this point now though, where I'm sort of like, I think, as you had said earlier about a different subject, kind of like shooting down the middle a little bit, like trying to find a balance. Just, you know, acknowledging that life is temporary, and I do want to like share what I'm doing like on a larger scale than I have been for the last decade or so. And I am, you know, coming to a point with some of these different depths of projects where some of them are getting like quite close to being ready to share.
Some things take just a long gestation period, you know, and I remember some of your projects, like I was totally, I mean, mindful that, you know, you had this like really well-developed sense of polyphony and of sort of a musical juxtaposition of different elements, and this throwback to kind of old school stuff, but then, you know, and the way your singing developed was like incredible, you know. So I could see where you just sort of like you expand and then you contract and gather up more material and try this new thing, and you know, it's, some of the videos you did were like that. It's just like, holy shit, Ivan's doing this like great thing that I would never have expected, you know. So maybe gestation period is something that you have to take into account and just let it happen the way it does.
I think there's something to it, yeah. And I'm just trying not to wait until I'm in my 90s to like be like, okay, I'm ready now. You know what I mean? Like this project's ready now. Not that that would be the end of the world if it happened, because at least I'd get it out. You know, it just, I'll have to wait another 50 years in that case.
Sure.
But
I want to see you performing when you're 90. I'm buying tickets to that show.
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm going Pete Seeger with it all the way. I mean, I do feel like good about that. Like people in my family usually live pretty long, and yeah, I never really was into the live fast and die young kind of ethos. Like I was, you know, even with like caring for myself, like I've been putting the earplugs in even at a loud party where there's like just like loud talking or whatever, because I want to be able to like still make records, you know, when I'm an old person.
Good for you. I'm already going in my left ear already. It's a little disconcerting to wake up and go like, I can't hear anything. I have to take my head off the pillow.
Oh gosh, that's my problem there too with the left one.
Yeah.
Are you right? You're right-handed?
Technically, I would have to answer ambidextrous.
Oh, nice.
But it's not like evenly split with everything. Like some things are right hand, some things are left-handed. But I write with my left hand, like guitar.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, I was just trying to think if there was some relation with your dominance, like how you might position. Like I know when I play drums.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess playing drums right-handed, the hi-hat's going in the left ear. So that's a big hearing killer right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe that's what it was.
The glass between you and the hi-hat, and then you'd probably be okay.
There you go. Or wear earplugs. That works.
Or wear earplugs.
Yeah.
Well, so you got it. You basically had to cancel a tour that you were planning for this summer, though, right? You were going to do music comics tour, right?
Yes. Yeah. That was the thing that I was going to do with 2020 was like a full North American music comics tour. Which, yeah, I guess just for any potential viewer who may be unfamiliar, which is probably most of the world.
Most of the world, I'm sure.
Yeah. I guess we didn't set that up. So yeah, I draw comics as well and cartoons and all sorts of illustration stuff.
Yeah.
In addition to songwriting and recording. And that was actually what I was doing as a child before I ever got into music. I was like the drawer in class, that kid.
Right.
So yeah, so now I didn't draw at all for a good stretch, and then I got back into it like 15 years ago.
Right.
Now I've been like kind of trying to ride both horses. And yeah, so anyway, music comics is a thing that combines the both. So I do a show with projection of the comics which accompany the songs, and just kind of
cool.
Kind of like a slideshow. So like the next image comes up, and it all kind of synchronizes with the song that I'm singing. There's word balloons and different little characters. So it's sort of like watching like a silent movie with like the organist, except the organist is singing and playing guitar instead of playing organ, but they're sort of like giving the sound life to the film you're watching.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm super bummed that that's not on the roster for this summer, because I was really looking forward to hosting you for
that. Yeah.
But maybe it'll happen later on.
It will for sure. I mean, as long as something else insane doesn't pop up to stop it. I mean, I was very, very much looking forward. Let's just say I still am very much looking forward to coming to New Mexico and like to the West in general, because the last bunch of years I have not crossed the Mississippi River to the west side of it, except for when I was living in New Orleans and would like take the ferry across to Algiers Point. That was as close as I've come to getting out west.
Cross the Mississippi, cross it again a couple hours later.
That's the furthest west I've gone since like 2004, I think, which was, I think, the last time I saw you in the flesh.
Right. Wow.
But yeah, as you know, there was a fundraiser to get like a decent tour vehicle to do that whole U.S., Canadian, Mexican music comics tour, and it got to about halfway funded so far. So the money's just still sitting there in a locked box and ready to, continue to be raised and to.
Great.
So I'm still intending to do the whole thing. Just we're gonna keep an eye on things and see when the right time will be.
Great. Well, we'll hold the spot for you no matter what, because this place will be awesome, that sort of thing. I kind of like the idea of the. It's kind of I don't want to call it lo-fi, but I'm going to call it lo-fi multimedia. So it kind of gets you back into this, get out of the sort of the fancy. What I want. Well, I want to tiptoe here around, because like I'm really into multimedia on a high tech level, but I feel like the craft of doing something with your hands, doing something that's very much just, got a shorter timeline or a shorter track from the heart to the viewer, to the consumer of the art, you know, like drawing something analog. I feel like it's on shaky legs. Like that type of art is just really not done so much, you know.
It's it's becoming a bit of a lost art. I mean, maybe we're just, I don't think it's lost. It's just kind of taking a back seat. Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting at my drawing desk right here. So there's some ink on paper. That was a little graphic I did for, that was right at the beginning of the pandemic to kind of promote rent cancellation, keeping people in their homes and not making ability to pay the most important thing.
The no is to no evictions then.
No eviction. Well, yeah, kind of no everything. No rent, no mortgage, no debt. You know, just like let's put people in housing first. Let's put people's ability to just like live just a baseline dignified life first. Because of course, you know, where we live, that's not the order. That doesn't come first.
Yeah.
But we're working on that. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I love it. I love to scribble, and it feels good. I obviously, like you and like everybody else, like I use computers, and I've had to adapt a bit. I still don't draw on a computer. Like I don't have one of those Wacom tablets.
No.
Although I'm kind of curious about trying that, just at least for colorizing things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it just feels good to me. To me, it's like a connection just to something very fundamental and positive. You know, it's just having, you know, been drawing and making comics like since I was a very small child. It's just sort of like a safe place. It's like a very comfortable, happy place. It's like my happy place. You know? And I don't get that from doing it on the computer so much.
You know, I think the medium doesn't matter so much as long as you can still express. I mean, I use computers. My face is in front of a computer 24/7 practically. I do feel like it's hindered a lot of my creative juices, you know, like I really have to sort of fight and struggle to get the real core expression out. But once I'm in it, I don't really see the tech so much as the process. And so I don't really, I'm not sort of bigoted in that way, I guess, but I do find that if I'm playing an acoustic instrument, I can be more immediately creative and have a better, tastier result quicker if I'm just dealing with like my hands on a piece of wood.
Yeah. Or on a stick, so to speak.
Yeah, I actually don't have a stick anymore. I sold my last touch-style instrument in 2006. So I'm playing cello and guitar, and built a couple of guitars and bowable baritone guitars, and so I use pretty much computers and, you know, 5 strings or 4 strings.
Okay, awesome. I'd love to hear you play or jam with you on cello. Like I've become friends with like quite a few cellists over the years, and now you've become one as well. So it's like it all just makes sense.
Yeah, well, I had ruminations of playing with you on the cello, you know, because I studied classical cello for about 10 years, and that became my instrument pretty much. And
Nice.
with a Ukrainian, she's Ukrainian. She was as a youth the top youth cellist in Ukraine.
Wow.
In like the 70s or something, you know. So,
I can picture it.
Oh man, the Russian school for strings is like hardcore. I can't. That's all I can say about it. It's fucking hard.
Well,
You
and then
know,
at that time it would have been Soviet.
well, and she,
So
yeah,
yeah.
she moved to Israel and San Francisco
Uh,
and there for, I don't know, 20 years. And but yeah, that, you know, you play a wrong note and she'll be like, "What?" I'd be like, it's like somebody shot me in the face, and she's just like,
oh
because it's like a shock to get like called out on a bad note. You know,
yeah, no, that's not how we. That's not what we're used to over
that's
here.
not that's not how we
Not
do it.
not like in our type of scenes,
Oh,
particularly. So
no,
wow, amazing. Have you ever heard Layla McCalla? She's a cellist and songwriter from New Orleans.
sounds familiar, but I can't say that I know her.
You should check her out. I mean, it's like, yeah, she's a friend from when I had been living down there before, and she's doing like pretty well for herself. Um, More of like a folky thing, and like you know, but
Mm-hmm.
literally so, and like getting into like folkloric use of songwriting as like a way of telling stories and histories. And
So she sings too.
she sings. Yeah, she's I think some of her lineage is Haitian, so
Oh, nice.
she brings the whole like Haitian folk song tradition and kind of like recycles that a bit into
Layla
what she's doing. Layla McCalla. Yeah.
Makala.
Yeah.
Makala.
Yeah.
Okay.
But where were we? I wanted to respond to something you had said a minute ago. Um, yeah, about the analog versus digital.
Um,
No, I'm with you. Like I think they're all just tools. Like that's a tool, and
mhm.
that's a tool. You know, and so it's just. I mean, you know, there's a million, billion, zillion people on Earth. Everybody has different tools that they vibe with and they feel comfortable with,
Yeah.
and that's a more direct connection to their heart and to what they're expressing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't. I'm just speaking for myself as far as ink and paper goes.
You just reminded me of this Onion article I read when I was like in college, and it was right when the internet was starting to go. And it was like a front page Onion article about an African tribesman who was like used a printed circuit board from a router or something to like kill and skin a deer, you know, and
Mm.
it's like there's a big deal that they're making this technological leap, but they were using it to do like, you know, animal husbandry and whatever else. So it was like, I had to chuckle because it's like not useful to anyone who doesn't really have a use for it, you know, like,
Right, but I mean, yeah. On the other hand, yeah, you know, like I think, I mean, I don't follow these worlds closely, but it seems like so much of the innovation and like some of the brightest thinking people in technology and
mm,
in like web development and whatever are from, you know, the global south and from like Africa, different parts of Africa and India and South Asia.
yeah,
You know, I think that's been interesting to like learn more about those worlds, you know, because I mean, to us, I mean, we didn't grow up with the internet. After a certain point, it kind of, like, we were the first people in the world to get it, basically, you know. Um,
mm,
but so in a way, to us, it's just kind of like, oh, that's just what is happening. That's what there is. But if you live in a place where it's like really like, that's a revolutionary, like a truly revolutionary thing,
yeah,
you know, I think a lot of people from those parts of the world are super accustomed to like doing a lot with a little. So they're going to figure out the most innovative, like incredible ways to use even very limited technologies to do like incredible things that we would never think of because we just get
sure.
lazier over here.
Yeah, one of my favorite uses of the electric guitar is King Sunny Ade from I think Nigeria. I think he's from Nigeria, right?
I
Uh,
don't know his work.
oh man, if you check out King Sunny Ade, he's like high life. It's African high life
Yeah.
music. And he's just like, I never would have thought to play a guitar like that, but you know, it's like a marimba and like just I mean, it's ecstatic music, you know, and so
Mm,
strongly recommend checking him out.
wow.
Yeah, but I
They
mean,
will
that's like,
do.
you know, absolutely African culture, and they just took this. They also the Tinariwen from Mali. I think they're like Tuaregs from Mali, and they all have brand new Fender instruments, and they're playing it like you never even heard music
Hmm.
played. Because it's just like a different culture took this thing that was made, you know, Wisconsin or I think Fender's I think is in Michigan. Or no, sorry, Gibson is Michigan.
I don't know.
Gibson.
Peavy's in Mississippi. I don't know where Fender is.
Fender's in Los Angeles. Well, it's sold to Japan now, but TBS. But what am I thinking of? Gibson, I believe, is in
Okay.
yeah, Kalamazoo, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There
Anyway,
you go.
that wasn't my point. My point was that stuff that was made for a specific type of music here is taken by another culture and just given the whole face rearrangement.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's super powerful. You should see there's this footage that you can see of um, Wilson Pickett performing in um, I think it's in Ghana in like 1971 or 2 or 3, and it's just the most beautiful thing. Because I think at that time that was like pretty early in when like Black American music was like beginning to like come over to the African continent, and
Yeah,
it's just it's so beautiful to watch that, and to think about the history of like these American musicians, these Black American musicians, and where their ancestors came from, and
right.
like against all odds and against like all levels of brutality, like survived and thrived to like a few hundred years later to like create this music that totally changed the world, and then not
Yeah,
only that, but to like bring it to the continent,
right.
and the people are just like freaking out to see this Black man on stage just like commanding with this like I don't know, they kind of look at him like he's from a different planet, like he's just like
Right.
gifting them with this like highly evolved music that it obviously bears a lot of relation to African music's going way back, to their common ancestors back in the day.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
no, it's really cool. I've been looking into that type of thing a little bit, like with I think there was a big like psychedelic, like weird, like kind of hard rock psychedelic scene in the early 70s in Zaire as well.
Uh-huh. Oh
And
yeah. Oh,
a little window of opportunity where they were like newly independent, but politically hadn't gotten all fucked up yet, and
right.
like corrupt by like people.
Yeah.
And yeah, no,
Right.
it's cool to see that like
Right.
cross
Yeah.
pollination going back and forth.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Actually, I think it was my first true like classical music professor, Fred Squattrito, in Cabrillo College. Amazing guy, really, really astute. Knew so much stuff. His pet project was like a gospel project with different singers, and he played keyboard and had gospel singers and gospel chorus and stuff. And he would get on his soapbox pretty much like every week and just say like African music has done more, like African culture has done more for American music than anything else.
Yeah.
Can't argue. You couldn't argue with him, because if you just do it like he'd like take it aside from learning Bach and analyzing Baroque music and say like, listen to African music. That's what's basically created American music. And if you think about it, it's pretty true.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. There's really no way around it.
Yeah.
So,
Listen,
yeah.
I want to take too much of your time. We've been here for an hour about, so
Okay.
you wanted to leave us teeny weeny audience with, because this is a public forum. I didn't have you sign a disclaimer or anything, but a
Did
release.
not. No, not really. I mean, geez, I'm just still, I'm curious to ask you more questions, and maybe that'll have to wait until our next conversation, because
Well,
I'm looking over here and I'm seeing you in this beautiful place. I know you're living in some sort of earth ship in the desert, and I think you built a lot of it with your hands.
no, I didn't build anything. I replaced the toilet.
You replaced the toilet with your hands?
With my bare hands.
Yeah.
I washed them afterwards too. But
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's a big thing that we have to do these days.
we do. We have to wash them at least 20 seconds.
Yeah, doubly so if you've been changing or using a toilet.
Yeah, I washed them for like an hour after the toilet operated.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I live in an Earth ship. This is a vintage 2002 Earth ship in the Greater World community in Taos County, New Mexico. And it has no heater, no air conditioner, no connection to the energy grid, no well. But we live very comfortably here. A little warm in the house today because it's been very sunny, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey so far. It's about 6-7 months here now.
Wow, can't wait to come out and put my feet on the ground there and give you a hug.
You can hug me, and just be careful. You might be standing near a snake. Yeah.
Okay. You're not talking about the little garter snakes like we have in Vermont. You're probably talking about something a little more threatening.
It's about 3 feet long now. It lives out in the yard. They get up to about 6 feet.
Oh, does it have a name?
I haven't named him yet. I don't even know if it's a him.
Yeah.
He was making out with the garden hose though, so I have to see what the gender of the garden hose is, and then maybe I don't know.
But then you still really wouldn't. Yeah.
Still wouldn't know. I really.
Maybe it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You got to give it a gender neutral name.
All right, I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Glad I have something to do this afternoon now.
I'm glad I got you straightened out. Yeah, we got some chickens here. Only 2 out of 3 of them are named so far. We got Blackberry, Swami, and then there's a 3rd chicken that is unnamed as of yet. So I'm working on that. But even after we get all these animals named, I'm not going to introduce our chickens to your snake. I think that's going to be a bad idea.
I don't think my snake's probably not interested in chickens. He's interested in mice though, which is wonderful because we have a lot of mice.
Okay, good. He's got his lunch cut out for them.
That's true. Well, I can't wait to see you in person, Ivan. It's been so wonderful to see your face and talk to you, for a little while and connect. And I'm really glad that you're still kicking, still doing your art. It's very inspiring. And,
thanks, buddy. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you too, and also appreciate us keeping in touch through the time zones and the years.
Thick and thin, yeah.
Yeah, and then until this whole thing blows over, let's send a few tapes in the mail.
Yeah,
make a few mixtapes.
I owe you some. I'm gonna search through my tapes and try to find those Soviet collection. I'm sure I didn't ditch that.
I'm so ready for anything you might have.
All right. Yeah, and I know I've got something interesting for you, so I'll dig it up.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited about that. We'll talk off the clock there. More about that. I'd love to listen to more background info you might have on all that.
Let's do it, brother.
Yes, homie. Well, hope you have a good day over there and take care of yourself.
We got plenty to do here, so I'll keep you in the loop.
Okay.
And
keep me
enjoy the rest of the summer. It's just getting going, man. So
yeah, let's make the most of it. Summer of 20.
All right. Big hug, brother.
Big hug, homie. Love you.
Love you too.
See you soon.
Okay.